Hi everyone. So today we are looking at the story of the Good Samaritan. Now, I know some of you might know this story. This is a story that Jesus told to a lawyer. Basically, what was happening was Jesus was telling people to love their neighbour, okay, which you would have heard us say lots of times before about loving your neighbour. And Jesus was telling people this, and the lawyer wanted to know who the neighbour was. So he said to Jesus, "So who is my neighbour?" So, in order to explain that to the lawyer, Jesus told him a story. And the lawyer wanted to know because he wanted to find out how he could be or how he could have eternal life with Jesus. So, Jesus told him the story of the Good Samaritan. And the Good Samaritan is a story about a man who was traveling. Now, back in Jesus's time, when you were traveling, it was not always the safest thing to do, especially if you were on your own. It wasn't like traveling now, where we have our cars and loads of different ways to travel around, even bicycles and stuff like that. There, most of the time, you had your mule, your donkey, or your cart, or you were just walking. So it was quite harsh, and there weren't nice roads like there are now. The roads were really rocky and bumpy, and sometimes you might get thrown off of your cart or your donkey. And there might have been wild animals that would hurt you. And there would have been robbers, unfortunately. There would have been robbers waiting along certain parts of the road. And if you were someone travelling by yourself and you looked maybe a little bit vulnerable, they might attack you. And so one day, what happened was there was a man, Jesus told the lawyer this story. There was a man who was walking along the road between Jerusalem and Jericho. And he was by himself. And all of a sudden, some robbers came out, jumped out from behind the bushes, and they attacked him. And they beat him and they left him by the side of the road. They took all his stuff and they left him by the side of the road. And he was all beaten and he was bleeding and wounded and he couldn't get up and he was sort of almost unconscious. And he'd been lying there for quite a long time. And all of a sudden, a priest came along and he was travelling down the road as well. And this is a priest, so this is a holy man, and he was travelling down the road. And you would think, wouldn't you, that the priest would stop and help the man, but he didn't. He crossed over to the other side, and he avoided looking at the man because I think maybe it made him feel a bit uncomfortable, and he didn't want to get involved. So the man lay there, and he lay there, and he lay there, and a little while later, another man came along, and he was an official at one of the temples. So again, he was a man who was a respected man who you think he would help. He would stop and he would help. But he didn't. He crossed over and he left the man there bleeding and dying. And the poor man had nobody to help him. And then a man came along who was from Samaria. And he looked at the man and he took pity on him. And he stopped and he put the man on his donkey and he took him so that he could bathe his wounds in olive oil and he wrapped them in bandages. That's what they used to do there. They didn't have like antiseptic like we have now or like wound spray. So like if you fall over and you graze your knee or something like that and somebody either at school or one of your parents or your carers washes it, don't they, either with water, and sometimes we put some antiseptic on it so it doesn't get all infected. And we can put plasters on it and stuff. Well, they didn't do that back in Jesus's day. If they hurt themselves, normally they'd clean it with olive oil because they had a lot of olive oil, and olive oil is good for you. So this is what the nice man, the Samaritan, did. He took the man, he bathed him, washed his wounds, cleaned them with olive oil, wrapped them in bandages, and he put him on his donkey and he took him to the nearest inn. So like a little mini hotel, he took him there and he cared for him that night and he made sure that he was all right. And the next day he had to go on his travels. So he gave the innkeeper 2 silver coins and he said to him, "Please take care of this man until he is well enough to go on his way." And he said, "If you spend more money taking care of him, when I come back this way, because I'm travelling back the same way, when I come back, I'll give you some more money to cover your costs." Now, this is a very, very kind man. So Jesus turned to the lawyer and he said, "So who was the good neighbour to the man who was in trouble? Who loved his neighbour in that story? And the lawyer said to Jesus, it was the man from Samaria who stopped to help him, the man who took pity on him, who showed mercy. And Jesus said, that's right. Now go and do the same. And that's what Jesus wants us to do. Jesus wants us to see people, sometimes who are vulnerable and who need us, and he wants us to love our neighbour. He wants us to be good Samaritans. Sometimes there are people, aren't there, who sometimes they just need to talk or they just need a friend. And sometimes lots of us feel very vulnerable at the moment, especially during the time that we're in at the moment. And just doing a little thing. Now, the Samaritan in the story, he did a really big thing, didn't he? Yeah, he did a big thing by taking this man, paying for his care. But sometimes we don't have to do big things. Sometimes what we need to do is we need to do small things. We need to not ignore things and just brush it under the carpet. Sometimes we need to do something about it. God would like us to. It makes Jesus so happy when he sees us loving our neighbour. I hope you're all okay, everybody, and I'm praying hard for you all, and I really hope to see you soon, possibly by Easter, who knows, but stay safe, everybody, and see you at the next Messy Church. Bye.